On this episode of A Soul's Quest podcast, I am having a conversation with Omar about where he's at on his quest. Stay tuned. I want to get to the stage in our podcast where we don't have to wear headphones.
Oh, I don't know how to do that. Listen, I have enough on my plate right now.
Can you learn?
I have enough on my plate right now.
Which is why we're here.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, because we're having a discussion about your quest or where you are with your quest.
Yeah, we recorded a session last year, and I called it a moment of clarity. I never put it out. It's never been distributed.
Oh, that's right. We did do that. Okay.
And I like moments like this. Like, it's just really a good reflection time. Mm-hmm. And I call that a moment of clarity because it reminds me of that Jay-Z song from the Black Album.
Okay.
You know, thank God for granting me this moment of clarity.
Yeah. Yeah.
To feel my truth. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, that's kind of like a good break in between to hear how I think we actually live.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think that, we're here preaching, so to speak, or getting people to humbly or be vulnerable and talk about their quest and what they've gone through. But I think it's important for our viewers and our listeners to also hear from us, so that they know that we're human and that we go through adversities.
We don't only talk it, but we live it. Oh my God! I'm reminiscing about my 90s hip hop.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna let you get started on that, but it's cute.
Right.
If you want to throw it out there here and there, that's cool. Yeah. As long as we're moving forward. So.
As long as we're moving forward.
Okay.
Get to it.
So chop. Let's go wrap it up. I'm gonna do that to you. I'm gonna keep you succinct. Okay. So where are you? I want to focus on you today. We can we can talk about me another day, but where are you right now in your quest?
I'm at an interesting stage in my quest. This is almost categorically speaking. It's been the hermit stage, right? So
what is that?
So there's there's times in your life in which you either by choice or by happenstance, you are alone in deep thought, deep reflection, and that could be considered like a moment of darkness. And for me, one of the things that we talk about is ski art, and we emphasize the importance of using the time that you have for yourself, the time of solitude, to really make it a productive time. But although I'm working on it being productive, it's also very painful and very frustrating. And there's a lot of things that kind of come out of that stage, particularly in the stage that I'm in.
Why is it painful and frustrating?
Because you have to confront things about yourself that sometimes you don't really want to acknowledge, recognize, that you have overlooked, and that you have to eventually either run away from it or eventually confront it. That's the ultimate choice. When situations arise, are you gonna, particularly internal stuff, which is not practical, it's not tangible, are you gonna confront it, or are you gonna just sweep it under the rug? We love that line.
That's such a great line. I just love that line. But okay.
But, so that's a situation. So, in particular, so everything that we talk about, it's like, I'm living in a world in which there's concepts, ideas, and things that I've learned throughout the years and studying my own stuff. And then there's the practical side of it all, right? So for instance, I quit my job in June of last year. Right. For many reasons. Philosophical differences, primarily that, primarily, you know, seeing things done to me and to others that I wasn't really in agreement with, and standing up for something, and in my own belief system, and just seeing how easily in our world a beautiful idea gets bastardized, for lack of a better term, or begin to lose its meaning. Right? So the way that I'm presenting the situation, it feels like there is always something, like there's something outside that was the catalyst for this. But by going into that reflective stage, right, I've come to realize that deep down inside what was happening, it's really a destruction of my personal beliefs and ideas about how things are, in the realization of how things really are. I mean, how things are, and how I wanted things to be. You know what I mean? Does it make any sense?
Not really, no.
Okay, so there's one of the books that I'm reading in this stage right now. It's the Tarot and the Young Archetypes, right? The Tarot cards and the Young Archetypes, right? And there's 22 tarot cards that are archetypal in nature, and what they represent. And Jung was really big on this and wrote a lot about this. Was that archetypes of our collective subconscious are images and things that have been a part of our human existence, and they come across in many different places over long periods of time, right? So these archetypes are things that happen inside of us. And one of them in particular is called the Tower. And what it is that it's a destruction of, what it symbolizes is a destruction of ideas, of concepts, of things in the way that you think that you should be living your life. But things happen subconsciously, and things happen subconsciously, but they're also happening in your world that, boom, make you realize, well, wait a minute, this is not how I want to live, and this doesn't go along with what's really is coming from inside of me. So it's a destruction of ideas. So, and it's a painful destruction, because for the last 15 years or so, my identity was bound with what I was doing, you know. And when you have that break, and I enjoyed what I did, I liked what I did. You know, I loved what I did. You know, I used to get make fun of by the kids. Oh, Mr. Hammer, you just left me. You know, I really felt like I was giving it my all. But having that break, it wasn't something that happened. There were catalysts, outside forces, catalysts that kind of like make that happen. But the realization is that internally, something that needed to happen to get me to this stage that I'm in. It's
almost like that, what we talk about, where it's that thing that it's either you make the decision or something, that energy or whatever is going to make the decision for you.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly. So that's what happened. And so where are you right, like today?
So like right now, like I've been struggling for the last few weeks. Like I've been really trying to make sense of a lot of things. The first thing that really came out of it was anger. You know, because your initial response when something happens and you perceive that it's something outside of you, it's anger towards people, towards situations, towards institutions, towards all this stuff. So that's a natural response that you're originally going to get. But when you go into the stage of reflecting, and you go into the stage of looking back at things, you start realizing that all those people and all that stuff are just characters in a play to get you out of your comfort zone,
right?
To make to push you out. So
it's almost like it just makes you you get so uncomfortable that you're like, oh no, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you get to that, and it hurts. It hurts because there's a lot of stuff that was said, and things that were done, and things that you saw being done to others, and you stand up for things, and and you see all that, and it's frustrating, and your first impulse is to be angry, and hatred begin to to come inside of you. That's like the shadow aspect of yourself that we spoke about before. That dark aspect, you begin to react from that point of view. And then the humbling part that's been happening to me, it's realizing, holy shit, look at you. Look at the way that you're reacting to the situation. Look at the darkness that is inside of you.
So you're recognizing the anger, the feelings
and how consuming that is.
Okay.
How consuming that is. And again, I'm not talking at the macro level. I'm talking specifically about myself, right? Yeah. And so then one day I was just kind of like meditating, and one of the things that popped into my head was the fact is like, you need to check your ego. You need to check your ego. And it's humbling when you realize that you have an ego, that you have, and again, ego is what the things that you consciously know about yourself. There's positive aspects of it and the negative aspects of it. And what I'm referring to when I say the word ego like that is the negative manifestations of it, the dark side of it, in which you become to feel victimized or self-righteous, or who the fuck do they think they are, or I'm better than. And then you start really realizing that whoa, wait a minute, it's a humbling experience.
So why do you think, because I know we can go on and on with your story about where you are with your quest and what happened and whatever, but just for the purposes of this episode, I sort of want to drive the point of, because some people might say, well, you know what? I was a victim. I was victimized. They treated me this way. They did that. And you just said that it's humbling to confront those things and know that I need to check my ego. Why do you think that's important? Why do we need to check our ego if we were in fact victimized and treated badly, and these things happened to us, or to you? Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you want vengeance? Why wouldn't you want to get back at people? Like, why is that not okay to feel that way?
So this is the part that I've been struggling with too. Like, why is that not okay? Why shouldn't I feel anger or hatred or want retribution or want my pound of flesh, right? Why? It's like, I don't deserve to be treated like that. We came from the intentions and all that stuff. And ironically enough, this is one of the things that I've struggled with, because personally I've always struggled. I wouldn't call it low self-esteem or anything like that, but I'm super hard on myself. It is one of those characteristics that I work on. I'm very hard on myself. And everybody that's really close to me knows that. And it's not that I there's a lot of things that come from that, and I have to work on that, and I have to change it, and I'm working on it. I'm being nicer to myself in a lot of ways, in a lot of things. But the reason why you need to recognize that is because when you come from that point of anger and hatred and bitterness, and you start creating your own path, and you're bringing that with you, it is detrimental only to you.
So it doesn't affect anything else. It's just yourself that you're hurting.
It does. It's yourself. Ironically enough, I've been reading the Bhagavad Gita, right? Bhagavad Gita, which is...
You're going to have to put that in the description.
Yeah. And, what? And there's a lot of... The book is like very intense, very simple, but it encompasses a lot of philosophy, right? And a lot of things about how we view the world, and how what matters it's not the outcome, but it's the right action and the right intent. So when you go into situations, so we're doing this as a soul's quest, right? And I felt that we needed to do this episode. For me, number one, it's a catharsis, to be able just to get it out, and to be able to understand and really keep myself in check as to what is the intention of what we're doing, and to realize that that there are moments in times in which we have to recognize that darkness in us, and we have to give it its due, allow it to, okay, it's there. I understand why it is there, but not let it infect our intent, or let it affect the reasons or the things that we're doing.
Or dare I say, to disable you to not do anything at all.
Exactly.
Right?
Because you get consumed
by it. That the ego is so strong, and the mentality of being a victim, and
yes,
I deserve this, I didn't deserve this, I deserve this, I don't deserve this, and to be treated this way, and standing up for that, for one, it falls on deaf ears, because at some point people are just like, okay, enough already, you got to move on. But so it is just really detrimental to yourself.
It is.
And so,
and the thing is that it's not that you should be ashamed of the actions that you took, because I stood up for something that I believed in. I said the things that I believed in, and I don't take those things back. What I'm learning from this book is that you have to take action and be detached from the outcome.
Okay.
Which is something that I'm
so that's a good
with.
lesson for people, because I think a lot of the times people do things and they want that outcome. I deserve this.
Yes.
And it's almost like that's the vengeance part, because people do things to be spiteful, even if they don't mean to be, but they do it. They're like, oh, karma's going to get your ass, you know? And you can't, that's what you're saying then?
It is.
Is that you can't have that expectation?
It's like you can't have that expectation. You have to let go of it. And you took the action. You did what you said. You said what you did. You did it for the right intent.
And so why would somebody want to do that? Why would somebody want to not be focused on, I'm going to do this because I know this is what I'm going to get out of it. I'm going to feel good when I throw these people under the bus, or I do this, or I tell them off. Like, what's the point in that?
Well, the point is which is very interesting, right? Because this book, it's about that. It's about your dharma, right? Like what you're here to do on this earth. And some of us are disruptors, I'm considering myself a disruptor sometimes, right? No. And sometimes you have to be a disruptor. But you have to be a disruptor not because, oh, look at me and look at what I did. It's because it's what needs to happen at that moment. It's what needed to be said, what needed to be done. But I can't allow myself to be attached to whatever happens after that. I'm struggling with this concept with A Soul's Quest, right? Because A Soul's Quest, my intention or our intention with A Soul's Quest is to help people navigate through the topsy-turvy world that is our existence. It's ever-changing. It's always going up and down. And we have to be able to understand it and make sense of it. And then also be able to see past the duality of everything. The opposites that see beyond the desires and the fear of our existence. Like, we have to be able to see that. But in order to do that, in order for us to talk about it, I have to be able to experience it myself. And I know that you're going through in your own thing, and we talk about it constantly. Mm-hmm. But this is real. Like, it affects you in reality, because we planned to take on this venture. Mm-hmm. There'll be financial consequences after a certain point in time. There's risks that you got to take. Mm-hmm. But the intention has always been consistent. It's like we want to share a little bit more light into this world that is becoming more separated and more segregated and more isolated, and people are struggling for identity,
Okay, that's good. So then, with that being said, you've talked about, you had this break, right? You had this experience. It was difficult, emotional, challenging. Mm-hmm. You confronted it, right? You confronted it, and you are sort of going through it right now, learning things, understanding how that you've recognized that your ego is something that you're contending with, that you really need to address, and that you need to have that focus in the things that you do that I need to check my ego when I'm doing this? What's my intention? What am I doing here? What's my purpose? And are my words, it's almost like a basic, I see this like on social media and things like that, where people say, watch your words, because you can put them out there, but you can't take them back. They're whatever. And it's like, you can hurt people by saying the things that you say.
No, it's people are going to be hurt by things that you say regardless.
Right.
It's the intent.
That's what
of
I'm
what
saying.
You're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that, so when you say it, why are you saying this? You know what I mean? You might be saying it because you need to defend yourself, or you need to stand up for something that you believe in, or you're standing up for something else, right? Mm-hmm. But the delivery says a lot. That's number one. And I think the way that you say it and what your intention is behind it, if you're doing it to just get somebody back, and I'm going to tell this person off with an educated tell off or whatever, like, what's the point?
The point that I'm learning, right, in all this stuff is just the interconnectedness of it all, right? Mm-hmm. Like actions, and we don't see it, but actions and words, and not so much in the words, the way that we say it, the purpose as to why we say it, because a lot of people say things out of spite, like you said, not for, I've been told, like I said before, oh, you talk too much. Mm-hmm. Like, what will be the point of saying something like that?
Well, it's just to be spiteful.
But right. Mm-hmm. So
the person that said that to you was being spiteful,
but
because
again,
they just didn't want to hear you talk.
So the question is like, you could say that to someone, because again, I admit, okay, I could talk a lot. I do talk a lot, but you could say, hey, listen, we got 15 minutes. We have to make sure that you keep us, succinct.
Like wrap it up, B.
What you have to, you could say a lot of things, and you say a lot of things, but please make sure that you are. But
what you're saying,
in a way, so
to be succinct here is what you're saying though is, when we say things, what is it?
So the intent will be like in those two scenarios. Number one intent will be to put the other person down there. They are beneath you,
okay,
and they're inferior to you, right?
Which is a typical delivery.
Which is a delivery that is very consistent.
Yeah.
Or the other one is to be like, listen, you got capabilities, you got talent, but we need to make sure that you know your audience and you understand exactly where you are. Yeah. From a personal perspective, from what I'm going through, it's being able to understand that this stuff happened. Number one. Number two, which is really, really hard to do, and I think our world needs this more than ever. It's to be able to forgive, not to forget, and not to be cautious when you come around those same individuals, but to forgive. Because one of the things that you start learning as you go along is that the things happen, and bad things happen to all of us in many different aspects. But if you're constantly looking for your pound of flesh, and you're constantly, not forgiving, then that becomes problematic. And to you.
Right, because what you're saying here is that was your emotional state. Yeah. Or that's your emotional state off and on lately that you still are confronting.
Yeah. And I had to deal, I did some exercises as to like, I try to, talk to some people. Fine, no response. Okay, no harm, no foul.
So you reached out to people.
I did. I wrote things down. And I just crumpled it, and I just said, you know what? In my own crazy ass self, you know what? Let me just get it out of my soul.
Okay, so you're answering a couple questions that I want to sort of wrap this up with, and so let me stop you here. So for you're on this quest, you're still learning, as we've always said. We're all constantly learning things and developing and adjusting and things like that, right? So you are experiencing these emotional things. It's been, a few months since you left that job. And so I can understand that there might still be a little bit of emotional attachment there, so to speak, but you're working through it. So what would you say to the person that, not everybody's situation is the same. So what are the similarities? Because that's what we talk about on A Soul's Quest, are the similarities that we share. What is it? What do you do now? What does somebody do? Because you've shared a couple of things that you're doing personally, but what are the things that people can do in general to sort of navigate that challenge, or these types of challenges of we talk about seclusion and being, alone and taking the opportunities to use that time to evaluate ourselves and think on so what, talk to me about that.
So like my recommendation is,
or what's working for you,
So like one of the things that I'm doing is because a situation like this, when you are attached to something for so long, either a relationship, either work, or the things that we do, it challenges your self of identity,
right?
Like who you are as a person,
right?
And when you're challenged with that, where do you go from there? Because if you feel like you're something, and that because because of this and that and the other, and that XYZ, it's gone, and you're no longer that, then what are you?
Right.
So you have to be able to be introspective enough and really answer that question: like, who am I? Besides my race, my gender, what I do for a living, my types of relationships. Am I a mother? Am I a father? Am I a son? Am I a daughter? Am I this? Am I that? If all those things are not there anymore, then what are you? You have to answer that question. And you have to really dig deep as to see exactly what is that identity of yourself.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that I've done,
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell, there's exercise, you could meditate and ask that question. You could begin to read and look at how people define themselves in the midst of all that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love that line from,
a rap song?
No, of Cat Stevens, right? Father and Son.
Oh.
He says, because you may still be here tomorrow, but your dreams may not, right?
Oh.
So if you are here, but all this stuff that gave you the identity of who you were, it's no longer there, then what are you?
Right.
Now, that's a question that I've been answering for myself. So then people have to answer that.
Right.
Number one. Number two is, once you begin to get an idea on what that identity looks like, because it's hard, because you're going to say, well, I'm this, I'm, what, if you don't have those categories to define you, again, I go back to that, but if you don't have those categories to define you, then what are you?
Right.
That is a dark, lonely place to be. Right?
Yeah.
So what I did is I meditated a lot. I'm reading a lot of stuff to find my identity and find that identity that goes beyond what I do or the role that I play.
Okay.
Right?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No,
I'll ask you after.
The other thing that you do, it's really for me, and this is just personally, I like to read. I like to watch movies that really make sense and stuff. I like to explore religious, spiritual concepts and things of that nature that are going to give me like a framework to work to, number one, identify myself, but also to give myself a roadmap as to this is what I would like to do.
And there's no one that's better than the other. It's just
no. You have to find out for yourself. But this is the problem that I have with a lot of religions that say that this is the way to. No, it's like the way to whatever. This is it. Yeah. It's like it's got to be your way. It's like you have to identify your way. And that is another thing that's hard. It's like I said before. It's like Joseph Campbell says it, and it's the same thing. Knights of the Round Table. You gotta pick your spot to go into that forest. You can't follow anybody else to find out that ultimate thing, the higher self, the God particle, that thing that you are, the essence of who you are. And that journey is the quest. That is the quest to that identity. And once you get to a point in which I've luckily got there and we're doing this, then you begin to take action. The part now that I'm in is I'm taking action. We're doing this. We're recording. We're putting stuff out there. Is somehow, which is really, really hard, it's learn to let go and not have an attachment to the outcome. That's the tricky part. That's what I struggle with right now because, in my past things that I've done, everything is measured it's outcome driven.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we provide an outcome driven experience. We do this. Everything has to be measured and quantified. And though I have my ways of doing that, I knew whether or not I was doing good or bad. And we have a measurement of what that looks like. But really, the essence and the intent is to help people transform.
Yeah.
You know, and how do you measure that?
Yeah.
How do you measure it if there's a word that's going to change somebody's life? You know, if there's I don't know how to measure that. You know, and that's the other part that is right now kind of like what I'm struggling with.
Is the understanding if what you're sharing and what we're doing is helping other people. Yeah. You're struggling with that. Okay. So
like, how do you quantify it? How do you, and not so much quantify it, but let go of the outcome. Like,
I understand.
Do it with good intention. Do it with the passion from inside. Like it's really that people see, oh, they really care about what they're saying.
And I think for the most part, people that have listened to us and watch us, and even people that have participated in interviews and things like that, understand that what we're doing is the intention is that we really want to help people and bring light into the world, right? Where there's a lot of darkness. But
it was interesting because one of the compliments that we got, we did Jason Anders' episode a couple of weeks ago. And he told Mari, my sister, that he feels so good after having that interview, that it was so therapeutic, you know? And I was like, wow, you know, that he felt so good after conversating with us. And again, that's just a little bit of light out there, you know, and I mean, the courage of sharing your story and having other people see you vulnerable and the struggles, you know.
And I would say too that I think for me personally, I think that when we do those interviews, it's very humbling. It's a unique experience because you're listening to somebody else and you're like, wow, that's cool. Oh, I'm not the only one that felt that way, you know. So that's kind of neat too. But so to just recap what we've talked about, so you're, you know, the idea here was just to present that we are normal people too, and we're going through our quest and we go through our difficulties, and yours is one of trying to let go of the outcomes and that expectation of focusing on tomorrow, right? And feeling less than and things like that, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that the things that you suggested are pretty practical for most people. But I would think that there are going to be people who are going to go, yeah, but you don't know what I'm going through. And I can't just journal this and that and whatever just to come up with a conclusion. So I want to definitely just say that we understand that people have different experiences that they're going through. But I would say that there are similarities in that, that you still have to confront.
I wish there was a simpler way to say it. I wish... because one of the things that I've been telling you is like, man, I wish I had a more joyful soul while I'm going through this stuff, right? And you could get to that point in which you really are joyful about it. But I struggle with that. You know, it's pain. How dare you think you're going to enter the garden of bliss without facing the trials as those that came before you? That's what the Quran says, right? It's like you have to feel some pain to break the old and bring into the new. It's that idea of rebirth, you know, of a death and a resurrection. It's like you know, that pain, it's a part of the process. But I don't work out. Obviously, I don't have the body of a. But you are a runner, so you run and you talk about when you get to that runner's high,
feels pretty good.
It feels pretty good, but at first, not very pleasant.
No, not at first.
You know,
and the next day you're like, ooh,
not very pleasant.
That's a good way to put it, though.
You know, and you can't always say that things are always going to be pretty. It's like it's just not realistic. It's not life, you know. Life is pain, life is sorrow, you know, but we got to transfer that. That's what Buddha said, you know. Those are the things that you have, but you have to live it, you know. It's not concepts. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we say, there are concepts, there are ideas and words that that sounds great. Now live that shit. You know, it's like when you live it, it's like completely, because it comes from here now. It's like you got to own that stuff, you know. Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, no, like, because when it's there, when it comes from there and you feel it, then you could have empathy for people, because you're like, holy shit, that was hard. Yeah,
that's good.
Well, thank you for granting me this moment of clarity. JC, don't sue me. Well, I'm not that popular anyways, but
no, I appreciate you being vulnerable. I think it's important that we share our quest as we go through it. So I appreciate you sharing.
All right, well, thank you for listening.
If you like this video, please like and subscribe and leave us a comment. Also, if you want to know more about what we're doing at A Soul's Quest, make sure to visit us at asoulsquest.com.